What's good, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about a new addition to the Washington Wizards, Dejan Vasiljevic. And where does Danilo Gallinari fit into the Wizards' plans, whether it's short term or long term? And we're going to look at the top 12 current Wizards. There's going to be some that are going to definitely strike a conversation next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again with my guy, the real Ed Oliver. Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So we are going to talk about the new signing of Dejan Vasiljevic. It's a mouthful, definitely is. Where does Danilo Gallinari fit in with the Wizards' plans in the short term and the long term? And we're going to look at a list of the top 12 current Wizards. There's definitely going to be some that could be a little controversial, but we'll talk about it. So first on the agenda, we signed Dejan Vasiljevic. Like I said, that is a mouthful, but he has agreed to an Exhibit 10 contract with the Washington Wizards per sources with ESPN. So he is familiar. He played with Xavier Cooks in Australia when Xavier Cooks had his MVP season. So how much of an impact do you think he's going to have on this team going forward? And where do you think his place is?
He may play after the trade deadline if he does make the roster. He's on an Exhibit 10 deal, which is a veteran minimum deal, and then he could possibly get the last two-way contract because we do have one available. Jared Butler's on a two-way, and then Eugene is on a two-way. Dejan is 26 years old as well, just like Eugene. So typically you usually get a younger guy on a two-way, but I trust in Will Dawkins in the front office and what they're doing. But the guy can shoot the three, man. He can really shoot it. He had 4 threes against OKC, had 14 points. It was really impressive. And I was watching, I was like, who is this guy? Because every time he shot it, he was switching a three, whether it was a step back three, a pull up three, coming off a screen three. Like he was hot. He was hot. He was a big part of why they won that game against the Thunder. And you can always use shooting. You can always use shooters. You can always use guys that can space the floor, whether he plays for the Go-Go or whether he plays for the varsity Wizards, the real Wizards. He can certainly help out. Went to University of Miami, played with Xavier Cooks. We'll see if Xavier Cooks is on the team this year. We'll see if he makes the roster or not. But I think it's a good move. The guy can come in and he can shoot. Now there were some other guys that may have taken a look at as far as getting the two-way contract. I like Jules Bernard. Number 5, I thought he did a good job out there as a young guard. And I want to say Donovan Williams is his name. I'm forgetting some of the guys that were on the Summer League roster. But, the guy can play. He can put the ball in the floor. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. Had a good career at Miami, averaged 14 points his senior year. But he did have one bad game in the Summer League. I was looking that up too, where he did look a little small. He did look a little overmatched in that Bulls game where he was trying to force the issue a little bit. He went 1 for 11 from the field, 0 for 6 from the three-point line, 3 for 3. For free throws, 5 points. He was a +9 and +- had 3 boards. So I'm not going to stat watch too much in the Summer League, but he really did struggle in that game against the Bulls. Went 1 for 11 from the field. So he can be a little hot and cold. But as far as a G League prospect and a two-way guy, I don't know if he'll make the roster or anything like that. But I think after the trade deadline, we probably could see him come in and play. I don't know. I don't think he's going to – it would be tough for – Jordan Goodwin was a good guy on the two-way contract, played on the G League team. I don't know if he's going to have an impact like that. But we've seen guys like Jordan Shackle, who was on a two-way, barely played. I want to say Vernon Carey was on a two-way, barely played. I remember Garrison Matthews was on a two-way, and he actually made a pretty solid career for himself. So who knows? The guy can shoot the lights out, and we definitely use shooting. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that his playing time will be being evaluated in the second half of the year. I'm definitely with you on that. But I think it's a solid move. Like you said, he had his ups and downs, but you see the potential with him in the Summer League. But this organization, man, Will Dawkins, he's really stockpiling a lot of depth of young players, man. And that's what I like. They're putting a lot of depth of young talent. And I love what I see from this front office, man, the way they're accumulating so much young talent. Like you said, the first two-way contracts are guys who, if we got, barring injuries, they can come in and they can play significant minutes. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good move. And like you said, he has familiarity with Xavier Cooks. I think, talking about Xavier Cooks real quick, I think he might be the new Anthony Gill, because we're going to talk about Gill in a little bit,
Yeah.
but he could be that that Anthony Gill, the guy. He he was the MVP in Australian League, so he could play some ball. It's just, to me, he needs to add a jumper, but we ain't talking about him right now. Talking about Dejan, it's a very intriguing move. Like I said, I like the fact that they're stockpiling so much young talent. You know what I mean? So much young talent. So looking at him, and we're picking up a lot of guys where it's gonna be hard. Hat goes off to Chris Miller, man, because if they play, saying their names, man, it's gonna be it's gonna be a trip, man, between him and what's his name? I'm trying to look at his name, man. The second two-way.
Tristan, no, not Tristan Vucevic. Eugene. I just call him
Yeah,
Eugene.
man. So hey, hat goes off to Chris Miller and then, man, because it's gonna be a trip doing that. But nah, man, before we move on, no, like I said, I like the fact that they're accumulating so much young talent. I know I've said it probably 3 times at this point, but because you didn't see this from previous regimes. They're really taking flyers out on young guys who, they come in to prove themselves. They could be developed. They could be diamonds in the rough. It really depends on them how to, to work. But here's another factor, outside of our big 3 in the front office, is that, the Capital City Go-Go, they have a great track record with bringing guys up and making them productive when they reach the NBA level. You said it before, Jordan Goodwin, Vernon Carey, he had the size, it's just, he just didn't get that playing time. But, there's a lot of success stories, man. Jordan Shaka was intriguing. But overall, if you look at the prospects they had in Capital City Go-Go, man, they've done a great job, either develop them so they can play for the Wizards or they get contracts elsewhere. So, I have all the faith in the world that they're going to be able to develop these guys and get them ready for the NBA level, if indeed we need them at that level. So, looking forward, Danilo Gallinari. Now, where do you see him fit, man? Like, before he was a buyout candidate, and now it seems like he's going to play in DC. If you look at players at the 4, like Patrick Baldwin Jr., do you see him taking away minutes from Patrick Baldwin Jr.? And do you see him purely as a bench role, or do you see scenarios where he might start in DC?
He's definitely going to play because they want to showcase him now. I don't think you're going to get much for him. He's how old is he right now? I'm looking it up, but he's 34. On Basketball Reference, he's 34 and 358 days old. So he's about to turn 35. He just came off the ACL. Played for Italy in FIBA towards ACL. So you're not going to get much value for him in a trade. Now, he can be somewhat of a mentor for the young guys, just showing them ropes, how to work out, get to the gym early, get shots up, stuff like that. He's a good shooter. He can score in the post. He scored in the mid-range. He's been a legitimate shooter in the league for a long time. He's been in the league for a long time. So, and he has familiarity with Will Dawkins as well. He played for OKC as well. But I do think he's going to play. If you look at the depth chart on ESPN, I know that's not the end-all be-all, but they have him behind Denny at the 4 spot. They have Denny coming off the bench at the 4, then Gallo right behind Denny being the 3rd string guy. But I think he probably get around 25 minutes a game. Now, Pat Baldwin, he probably will see some G League team because it looks like they're just not going to be able to trade some of these guys like Shamet and Gallinari. I think some of these guys, they're not going to be able to find deals for them unless they're included as a 3rd team in the Dame trade. So right now, it looks like these guys are going to be on roster. Gallinari's wearing number 88. It's going to be his first time wearing number 88. But to answer your question, yeah, I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play. Him and Muscala, Shamet, all these guys are going to play until they're going to be traded. DeLon Wright, Tyus, all these guys are going to get playing time. And Will Dawkins said he didn't want to bottom out, but the roster is just not good enough to really compete for a playoff spot, in my opinion, right now. But I do think Gallo's going to play. I think he's going to be a good floor spacer. And if Denny does play in a second unit, you need as many floor spaces as you can get and many shooters you can get, because if you see Denny playing point forward, he can find Gallinari for a 3. He can find Shamet for an open 3. He can find DeLon Wright for open 3 and Muscala for open 3. So I actually kind of like that lineup with Denny playing point forward next to Gallo. And Denny gets along really well with overseas guys like Porzingis. I think Gallinari is going to be a good bench piece. Now, I do kind of feel like Gallinari might be the Will Barton of this year, where I was like, oh, man, Will Barton's going to be so good for the team. He's going to be a great scorer. He can break guys down, isolation one-on-one, and then it just didn't work out. He eventually got bought out. So something like that could happen with Gallo, where he has a couple good games, but he's just way too inconsistent, and then he gets bought out. And then a playoff team who just needs a bench scorer, they sign him for the remainder of the season. So that's kind of my prediction for Gallo, unless he's grouped into a trade. So I think he can help a little bit. I think he'd be a good veteran guy that can space the floor, and he's really good off the pick and pop. So him and Jordan Poole pick and pop, and Denny and Gallo pick and pop, and Tyus, DeLon, whoever's playing point or handing the ball. I think Gallo would be good on a pick and roll and pick and pop.
Yeah, you mentioned two key areas real quick, man. Leadership and I just forgot the second area, but you know, this is left my mind, man. But looking at leadership, man. And Denny, you mentioned two things, Denny and leadership. I don't expect him to 25 minutes, yeah, but I don't expect him to be the Gallo of old. He used to be a number one option, Denver, New York, but leadership, man. What they're trying to do here in DC is invent a whole new era of this culture. They're trying to change the culture, trying to introduce a winning culture here. I think his leadership is much needed. You have Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole has shown leadership, but Gallinari, man, he has proven to be a number one option at certain points in his career in the NBA. He came over here when at a time foreign players were scrutinized a lot. You didn't have Luka in the league at that time. People forget, man, when KP was drafted in New York, man, they booed him like there was no tomorrow. Foreign players, just weren't, especially at the high picks that they were chosen. Just you didn't choose foreign players that high at that time in the NBA. And he came in and he, so I think that he'd be definitely a good influence on Denny, man, because I think he can kind of give a little swag to Denny because look, Gallinari came in the league, man, and he had a little swag to him. He came in Denver, he was number one option. He came in, he scored, he was talking stuff. He came in and you can honestly say that Gallinari, man, was one of those guys that really laid the blueprint for European players and players from the international players that come in and have some swag. So I think he would be a great influence on Denny Avdia, man, to really tell him, hey, this is where you can be. You can be that number one guy, that scorer. But because Gallinari wasn't really a defensive guy, so Denny's already got a leg up on him on defense. But I think he would be a great influence. I think that's really what the key with him being on this team is not so much on production, but on him being a leader, really, especially to the European players. I think he'd be a great leader for them going forward. So, yeah, I think it's a move that I would definitely keep him here because you got to ask yourself, how much can you really give for him? I think he'd be great for the culture. He's on an expiring deal. Keep him here, help with the culture, help get these guys going, give them some, So I'm all for the move, man. So we're going to go ahead and move on. We are going to talk about the top 12 current Wizards, Lord. And then we're also going to talk about Kendrick Nunn and Anthony Gill. They have some interest from some foreign teams to play overseas. But before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Picking up burgers and hot dogs for a summer barbecue, you're already doing it. So why not get cash back for it? With Ibotta. It's officially summer, and new season means new clothes, but your closet should be the only thing growing when you make these purchases. Now, you can also watch your cash back grow with each purchase with Ibotta. Finally, taking that summer vacation that you've been planning but dreading, buying all the necessities before you take off, it's time to stop spending your hard-earned cash without getting anything in return. Enter Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account, upload your receipt after you shop, and get your cash back. It is that easy. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download free Ibotta app and use code LOCK. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKED. Ibotta. And thanks for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day, as we're going to get back into mailbag episodes. So definitely keep shooting us your best questions, man. So looking forward, E. Real quick before we get into the top 12 list, two Wizards players are reportedly talking to international teams. Kendrick Nunn, the key acquisition from the Lakers with the Rui Hachimura trade. He is getting interest from the Greek club Olympiakos. Bear with me, y'all. Brias. and Anthony Gill has interest from foreign teams too. So you think this is it kind of like one of those situations where it's kind of like thank you for your service, bye? Or do you think that I'm with you. Appreciate your service, man, but time to roll. So
right. But no, to answer the question, and then one more thing I'll talk about Gallo is he has a lot of familiar with a lot of the staff, so he has his own podcast. I didn't know that. but he mentioned that he crossed paths with Michael Winger with the Clippers because Gallo played with the Clippers. Will Dawkins in OKC, Wes Unseld Jr. in Denver, and Travis Schlenk in Atlanta. And so he has a really good relationship with assistant coach Joseph Blair. So he's definitely going to be on the roster to start the season off. He looks like he gets along well with a lot of people on the roster for sure. But to answer your question, yeah, it's just kind of thank you for your services. I really dislike that we traded Rui for a guy that, was only here for 2 months or 3 months and didn't really make much of an impact at all. The return was really awful. And I do wish Kendrick Nunn the best. I do think he has some talent, but I wish him the best for sure with Olympias if he does sign with him. And Anthony Gill, I think he's been a great story to come from overseas, went to Virginia University. For him to start, like, Wes Unseld Jr. started Anthony Gill a couple of games. Like, he got some legit minutes and played in the clutch a couple times too. Wes Unseld Jr. really liked Anthony Gill a lot, and he was a hard worker. I think he got an award for sportsmanship or something, charity work or something like that. Like, this guy had a tough work ethic. Corey Kispert talks about how much of a hard worker Anthony Gill is. Not the most skilled guy in the world, but he makes up for his skill or the talent that he doesn't have from some of the guys who are at the top of the roster with his work ethic and toughness. And he was a small ball 5. Whatever Wes Unseld Jr. asked him to do, he went up there and did it. So I wish him the best if he does go overseas. But I think them they just have so many guys on the roster where they really need to consolidate. So I think he most likely will go overseas. I don't know the contract situation. I don't know if they're offering him more money, but that's my piece on Anthony Gill.
Yeah, it's kind of like the cherry on top when it comes to that Rui Hachimura trade, man. It's just for Tommy Shepard, that was the cherry on top. The key acquisition of trading.
I'm sorry, you traded for a guy that's not even going to be in the NBA.
Thank you.
Rui's going to be on a team that went to the Western Conference Finals and just got paid. So it hurts.
Tommy. Tommy, come on. I mean, he's not even going to get an NBA contract. He's going overseas, man. I mean, yeah, it's just cherry on top, man. Just that's all I got to say. Thank you for your service, but that is the cherry on top with Tommy Shepard's era, man. The trade for a guy who's not even going to be in the league next year. So that says it all in itself. So moving on, man. Looking at the top 12, that was a top 10 current Washington Wizards put up by Ball Academy. So I'm going to go through the list real quick, and then my question for you is, who would you change in that lineup? So starting from the bottom, number 10, they have Mike Muscala. Number 9 is Landry Shamet. Number 8 is DeLon Wright. Number 7 is Denny Avia. Number 6, Corey Kispert. Number 5, Daniel Gafford. Number 4, Danilo Gallinari. Number 3 is Tyus Jones. 2 is Kyle Kuzma, and number 1 is Jordan Poole. So I already know. I can already tell where people are gonna have some friction, man. But what spots? Who you think is rated too high, or you think is rated too low?
Ooh, this is a good one. I think Jordan Poole's about right. Jordan Poole and Kuzma is so close, man. They are so close. I do think Jordan Poole has a slight edge only because of what he's done in the playoffs. He had 31 points against the Memphis Grizzlies. He had some really big games. When Steph doesn't play, he averaged 25. Heck of a passer. Kuzma, when Bill and Porzingis don't play, he plays pretty. He goes off for some big games. He's had a couple 30-point games too, and he's clutch. So that's a tough one. But I'd probably go with Jordan Poole. And you look at their contracts too; they're so similar. Like Jordan Poole's making 28, and then Kuzma making 25. So it's like so close. You can really interchange both. Kuzma didn't really play well in the finals, but he did play with Braun and AD, where they take a lot of shots. And he was kind of stuck in a corner. That one is so tough. And Kuzma's such a good rebounder. Poole's such a good passer. But I probably go with Poole with the slight edge over Kuz. I think Tyus probably is the third best player on the team. With Memphis, he's been really good. And when Ja doesn't play, he's really, really good when Ja doesn't play. Fourth being Gallo, coming off the ACL. That's tough, and the roster isn't great, so we gotta be honest with that too. This is probably one of the worst rosters in the NBA, to be honest. DeLon Wright is a guy who's really such a good defender, but man, this really is a tough one. I probably should have sat down and thought about it. I know they didn't put Blau in the top 10 because it's so early in his career.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything against that. Johnny Davis didn't make the top 10. I don't really have anything against that at this point right now. Shamet is 9. I think that's about right because he's put up numbers in the playoffs. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Even though we don't really want to see him play this year because we rather see the young guys. But yeah, the first 3 are correct, and then Gallo being 4th best. That kind of is right. Gallo's had a good career. He can really score. And then Gafford at 5, Kispert at 6, and then I do have Kispert above Denny. I do. I know a lot of people are gonna definitely argue me down for that one. I do agree with that. DeLon right at 8. DeLon and Denny are so close to me that they're both really good defenders. They don't give you much on offense, but they're really good defenders. So it's a tie. And then Shamet. I might. Oof. Shamet on a playoff team, he might give you more value to the team than what Denny gives you because he can really shoot, and he really helped the Suns out in the playoffs. Muscala at 10 is about right. So I actually kind of agree with Ball Academy's list. To be honest, I think Corey is about 6, but really, honestly, between Gaff, Corey, and Denny, they're all like rotational role players. And then Gafford, there's some nights where Gafford is bad and then he's good as a pick and roll guy and getting lobs, but he'll get in foul trouble and drop passes and get pushed around a little bit. So they're both just wildly inconsistent. Corey's probably the most consistent out of all of them. But man, it really is throwing darts at the wall with the last part. So I'm gonna go. I kind of agree with this guy's list where you got Gafford. Gafford probably has been the most decorated out of when Gafford played with Westbrook. He probably is. He's definitely better than Corey and Denny. Yeah, and DeLon for sure. He just needs a point guard to really set him up. If he doesn't have a point guard to set him up, then you probably put Corey. You might put Denny above him some nights too if Gafford doesn't have a point guard. But when Gafford actually has a point guard out there, yeah, he probably is better. You might be able to say he's better than Gallo if he has a legitimate point guard to set him up, like a Russ or a John Wall or a Ja Morant or somebody like that.
Yeah, looking at the list, man. I'm going to put Danilo Gallinari at 10. I'm going to tell you why. Because him coming off the ACL, I don't know what I'm getting from him. And the list says, you know what I'm saying? And it said the current Wizards. Now, you're going off past years. Yeah, I can see him being definitely higher. But I just don't know what to expect, especially with ACL. Now, the ACL in basketball, is a little better than football because football, man, you need that plant leg, especially as a running back. So, as a basketball player, you're not going to be as explosive, but, he's older. Like you said, he's about to turn 35, man. So, I'm going to put him at 10, man. Muscala at 9 because he's kind of a stretch 5. Landry at 8. 7, I'm going to put DeLon. 6, I'm putting Daniel Gafford. I like Daniel Gafford, man, but skill-wise, he's kind of developing a mid-range, but he's kind of one-dimensional. He's a rim protector, but like you said, he needs a point guard that's going to kind of spoon feed him, like Martian Gortat. I still laugh when John Wall said about him spoon feeding him, but his game is expanding. It's just not there yet, man. And I like I said, Gaff is solid at center, man, but he's one-dimensional. Let's see. I'm gonna put Kispert, then Denny, Tyus, Kuzma, Poole. And the reason I put Denny above Kispert is because of defense. Because right now the defense is just more of a commodity right now in the NBA than it's just if you look at Marcus Smart, they traded him for 2 first rounders, man. So and the list goes on when it comes to defenders. Gobert. What was it? 4 or 5 first rounders for Gobert. I mean, defense is at a premium right now, so that's why I'm putting them up there. But yeah, it's tricky with that top 3, man, because Jordan, Poole, and Kuzma, they're right there. Efficiency, they're kind of the same. As far as shots, their play style. The only thing that separates them, obviously, Kuzma's taller, but and then Kuzma is a little more polished on the defensive end than Poole. But yeah, I agree. Definitely go Poole, Kuzma, Jones. What did I say? I said Denny, Kispert, Gafford, DeLon, Shamet, Muscala, and Gallinari. So that's what I'm rolling with.
Okay. Hopefully Bilal definitely cracks the top 10 before the season starts. Maybe you could put him above Muscala and maybe Shamet. as the top 10 guys by the end of the season. Gallo at 10 because you don't know what he's going to give you because of ACL. That makes sense, but I think he's going to come in and still be a good shooter and a good scorer. I do have Kispert above Denny, not by much because it's just consistency. Denny's just wildly inconsistent at times. Like he'll have a turbo game and then you just don't know what he's doing out there. Some games where he struggles to make a layup here and there. So it is tough. Gafford, you put him down to what, 8, right? Or 6?
I believe it was 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So because Gafford's wildly inconsistent too. Like some nights he'll give you a double-double.
Yeah.
Where he's dunking on people, and then some nights he'll foul out in the first 3 quarters. And he'll have some kind of weird injury and not come back in the game or set 2 illegal screens, and the next thing you know, he's on the bench. Or he's just getting pushed around or he'll fumble the ball. So they're all just so wildly inconsistent. But DeLon, man, some nights I'll move him up too because his defensive impact is so strong where he could be a top 5 Wizard. Last year he was the best defender on the team. So he definitely could be in that top 5 some nights. So but yeah, it's an interesting debate, Muscala 10, 11. You could probably put him like 10 or 11 around that too. So I do agree with Ball Academy on that. But yeah, the first 3 are definitely shoe-ins with Poole, Kuz, and Tyus. Tyus Stones. Tyus is clutch too. So, yeah. But yeah, Corey being a 50, 40, 90 guy almost for me. So I definitely got to put him in the top 6 or top 5.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a tricky list, man, because he said, this roster is not the most sexy rosters in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? So
it's unfortunate Johnny doesn't crack the top 10, but a lot of Tommy Shepard's picks are kind of just that rotational role player tier. That's just what they are.
Yeah, many words explain Tommy, man. But yeah, you're about. But like you said, it looks at looking at the list, man, just says that we have a really young roster, man, and a roster really needs to prove itself. But Kispert, talking about Kispert and Denny, man, why they should be higher on the list. I agree. Kispert, can you imagine Kispert if he could play above average defense? I mean, that shot, man, and his ability to cut, man, he's intriguing, man. And the first shot, because I think they made it a drinking game, man. Every time I say I'm intrigued, and
there you go. Yeah.
So that's your first shot, man. But no, it's gonna be something to see, man, because it's a young roster, but it's a very hungry roster, man. People trying to show themselves. Jordan Poole, just all that mess with Draymond, he's coming in the season with a chip. Same thing with Kuzma. Look, Kuzma, a lot of people don't realize, man, the players hear the pulse of the fan base. I know there's players like Kevin Durant are famous for indulging too much into Twitter, but it's just players they. Oh yeah, X now. You see, I'm still getting used to it, man. X, but they look at social media, man. And a lot of people, it's been hot and cold about Kuzma coming back. I think he's gonna have a little chip on his shoulder, to prove that he has some worth on his team. Because you can't put a price on leadership, man. And that's why it goes back to Gallinari. Is that I think his biggest key to this team is leadership, especially to foreign-born players. Because look, there's an adjustment coming over in the NBA. If you got a guy who played at a high level in the NBA for so many years and knows how to make that transition, because I forget what interview it was not too long ago that Denny had, man. But he said the biggest thing with him his first couple of years was being homesick and not really having a lot of guys who are I don't know why I say European, but a lot of people compared like Israel to European because the culture is a European culture, but it's just having a guy on there who knows how to handle that is a big key. So yeah, the list is what it is, but we're gonna go ahead and move on. We're gonna go ahead and call it. Definitely appreciate you guys. Definitely comment below and let us know what would you change. Who's too high, who's too low. Definitely let us know because dialogue is key on this channel, man. So definitely let us know. Like, subscribe, comment below again. Anywhere you get your podcast, definitely a 5-star review is much appreciated. Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow. We're going to do a mailbag episode. And on Thursday, we have former host of Locked On Wizards, Dealante Daniels. So definitely tune in for that one because that's going to be a good one. So definitely tune in. So again, appreciate everybody, man. Everybody have a good day. Hail to the Wizards and peace. See y'all later.